Hi, I hope you can hear me, and I hope you can see me. Or actually, I think I would prefer that you hear me more than see me, but you know, that's how it goes these days. So I am Carol Van Natta, space opera and fantasy and paranormal romance author. And yes, it's another podcast with silliness and opinions, and I will try to respond to comments if I can, but Facebook doesn't always show them to me until afterward. And so somebody writes a lovely, funny comment, and then I don't get to see it until afterwards, and I don't get to acknowledge it or anything. So I see that Jessica Keithline is on and says hi, and I say hi back to her. And several others too, I think I see too. Hi. So for those of you who were hoping to see the podcast director today, aka my cat, she is sulking because she's had a bad day. She had to have a pill. And then her favorite hiding place, the one where, you know, she hides when she doesn't want to have her pill, there was another cat in it. And then the heater in her favorite chair has given up the ghost, and I might have to bribe her with catnip later. So, my current news is the release of Pet Trade, which is a novella in my Central Galactic Concordance space opera series. It's standalone, so you don't have to have read the other books to enjoy it. You can find Pet Trade at your favorite ebook sellers right now because it came out, and then the paperback version will come out next month. And it will look something like, gosh, I'm terrible at this. Something like this, except that it'll say Pet Trade instead of Zero Flux, and it'll have a different cover, but it'll look like something like this, and it'll be cool, okay? So, and at the end of this podcast, I'll read a little short excerpt from it, and then you could just kind of turn off the video and listen, because I'm sure it's going to be really thrilling to watch me reading something. But anyway, so the reason that I wrote Pet Trade was that I was invited to participate in an anthology called Pets in Space 2. And I jumped at the chance because, come on, I mean, it's pets in space. And see, you're smiling right now. I can tell, because it is such a perfect concept. Equally importantly, though, the anthology supports a charity called herodogs.org. They place dogs, and they train and place dogs with disabled U.S. veterans. And that very mission kind of inspired my story, Pet Trade, which involves an elite forces military veteran who is part biometal, aka cyborg, and a talented veterinarian with pretty serious PTSD. And they're both helped greatly by their pets, of course, as you might imagine, because Pet Trade, pets in space, you know. And it turns out they're going to need them because greedy mercenaries might want something from them. So the other big news is that, yes, there will be a Pets in Space 3 this year. And yes, I will have a story in it. I'm so thrilled. So I'm in really good company. I was last year, but this year too. So this year, S.E. Smith, Susan, who I've actually been lucky enough to meet in person, by the way, plus Anna Hackett, who lives in Australia, so I probably won't be meeting her in person, at least right away, or at least anytime soon, because my books would have to sell a lot more copies for me to be able to afford to fly over to Australia to meet Anna and my other friends in Australia. And I may as well stop in New Zealand too while I'm at it. And you know how it goes. So, but I love Anna's books. They're wonderful. Her Hell Squad series in particular is my favorite, but she's got lots of other series too. People who I would like to meet include Lindsay Broker, who writes as Ruby Lyonsdrake, because she is very prolific in science fiction and fantasy, and she is wicked funny, and I am a fangirl of pretty much everything that she does. The anthology is organized by Jean Walker, who writes science fiction and fantasy romance as Veronica Scott, and Pauline Baird Jones, both of whom I have worked with before and are lovely people, and I hope someday to meet. And that might be more possible because we all live in the United States. So the other authors in the new anthology, this year's anthology, are Tiffany Roberts, who writes Kraken series, and Alexis Glynn Lattner. She was in Pets in Space too, and Edie Walker and J.C. Hay and Kendra Hatch, all of whom I want to get to know better. So as to my story in Pets in Space 3, I will tell you more about it next month after I finish the outline and actually start writing it. So on the pantser versus plotter continuum, I'm more of a plotter. For those of you who aren't familiar with these terms, pantsers are the authors who write by the seat of their pants. They sit down with maybe, I don't know, a character or two, or a conflict, or an ending, and somehow magic happens. Both Eve Longley and Susan Smith are pantsers, and I am in total awe of that magic. I'm just constitutionally incapable of that. Plotters, on the other hand, are authors who write outlines, and sometimes really detailed outlines, complete with timelines and character descriptions and whole civilizations, and they draw pictures and they have maps and things like this before they ever start a single chapter of their novel. So that's kind of like not me either. On the pantser versus plotter designation is more of a continuum than an either or. So I'm more of a plotter than a pantser, but I leave myself for surprises and discoveries as I go. In Pet Trade, my outline said that a very specific pet would defeat the villain. But then when I got there, I was actually writing it, another pet stepped up the plate and said, "Pick me." And I said, "Oh, who am I to argue with you?" So if you read this story, see if you can guess which pet I had planned to be the instrument of the villain's comeuppance. And yes, I am being deliberately vague so as not to give away any spoilers, because my clever plan is to entice you to read the book. So, as I promised earlier, I would like to read you a brief excerpt of the story, and it lists some of the pets. So this is the part where I might be not paying so much attention to the camera, and so maybe you want to just go and do multitask or something. Listen, and then do something else visual, because you're just going to see like me doing nothing but reading. Okay, so the setup is. This is a frontier planet, and the lady I mentioned earlier, the veterinarian, is named Bethany Bakonen. She's a minder with powerful mental talents to help her connect with animals and treat them. Axer, and she's the lady with PTSD. Axer Tragon is an ex-elite forces Marine. In my series, they're called jumpers because they jump out of like super orbital things and wear jumpsuits that they can land on planets and things, so they're called jumpers. And he's got some secrets, but he also has an unexpected cargo of pets, and he has asked Bethany to evaluate his charges and tell him how to care for them. So this is my excerpt from Pet Trade. 40 minutes later, Bethany sat on a rough-hewn bench at the work table inside a barn, packing her equipment back into the bag and talking via the ear wire to Axer, who was in his living quarters area. She didn't sub-vocalize. Animals didn't care if she spoke out loud. "You've got a fortune in stolen and illegal pet trade animals." "Stolen?" The ear wire made his rich baritone sound thin and distant. "Your E-Dog, for one. E for enhanced. He's military trained, and his sensory implants and command processor are still alive. If you knew the passcode and comm band, you could program a percomp to give him a complex sets of orders to follow and get a feed through his implants." "That makes sense." I named him Trouble because that's what he gets into when unless I give him jobs to do. Just like some jumpers I know. Your 3 cats are illegal because the designer spliced in a few primate genes to give them those long, flexible toes and a broader diet and left them fertile. Any CGC health inspector would destroy them on sight in case the splice bred true. Feed them meat and dairy, any fruits or vegetables they'll eat. You could trade with Nunez for some yak milk. They'll probably go into their first estrus cycle in the spring. Lucky they're all female. Can you or Nunez fix their playground so I don't have kittens on my hands if some equally fertile male comes looking for love? The big dire wolf warily poked her head into the barn's entrance. The boldest of the young cats had already left a stinging wound across her nose leather. Bethany laughed. Fix their playgrounds? Yeah, we can neuter them. What did you name them? Shea held out her hand, and the wolf trotted over. She sent another thread of healing to the wound, but couldn't repair the wolf's injured dignity. Alpha, Bravo, and Delta. There were 4, but one of them died the first day. He was silent for a long moment. I never liked cremation duty. Me neither. She ran her fingers through the wolf's rough coat and sighed for all the beloved animals she'd lost over the years. Your 2 ravens are a non-fertile mated pair and bred to be pets, but they're half again the size of standard size, and their wings are intact, so they'd be destroyed for unfair ecosystem advantage. They'll tolerate the cold, but they need clean water and bone-in meat every day, or they'll starve. There won't be enough winter carrion at this elevation. That huge aviary you built for them is good, but give them more branches to sit on. I traded for extra cases of dog food this summer. What else do they need? Grains, leftovers, especially any real meat, maybe some rotting fruit. They'll eat almost anything. You might make them some toys and puzzles with food rewards. Train them to do new tasks. Keeps their busy brains active instead of destructive. I named them Shade and Shadow after that Tri-D cereal about thieves. I recover an amazing amount of stuff every time I clean out their bowls and baths. She chuckled at how disgruntled he sounded. Your food dog, Shiza, is legal, probably stolen. They're designed to look like curly-headed lions from pre-flight Chinese legends, but underneath they're mostly dogs, so you can feed him whatever you feed Trouble. Don't let Shiza bite you out of anger or fear. Food dogs are designed to protect children, and his teeth can inject a nasty toxin. I can use Nunez's lab to tailor vaccines for you and the others, as well as Nunez and me, but it'll take a 10-day or so. The big wolf sat on her haunches and rested her head on Bethany's shoulder. She stroked the wolf's broad head. Long day, huh? I'm sorry, I've taken up a lot of your time. No, I was talking to the dire wolf. Her life is in flux at the moment, and she's here with me wanting affection and reassurance. Axer mumbled something in a language she didn't recognize. Her minimal education hadn't included anything but standard English and whatever rude words she could pick up on the streets. What about the miniature dinosaur? I think it's supposed to be a stegosaurus. Its name is Anklebiter. She shook her head. I don't do reptiles, amphibians, or fish. Can't feel them at all. Your reference manuals are your best bet. You might need to stay inside for the winter. Can I ask how you know so much about the pet trade? You don't seem like the type. Ordinarily, she zeroed personal questions, but he was trusting her with the animals he loved. More tellingly, they all cared for and trusted him without reservation. And that is the end of my excerpt. And you can buy Pet Trade at Amazon and Kobo and iTunes and Barnes & Noble and Google Play and in paperback next month and that sort of thing. And I think that's all I have to say today, since I've read you a nice story and talked to you about my other books. So I'll probably do another one of these podcasts because they're kind of fun and I have a good time. And I hope you do too. So until next time, happy reading.